Happy Thursday, guys. It's Bacchanal in Barbados. How you guys doing today? Welcome to the podcast Below the Belt. Who vex lose? Who vex vex? It is what it is, folks. The results are what they are.
Yes, we want she. Me a monthly.
It is what it
Yes,
is,
we
folks.
want she to lead me again.
Fantastic
Yes,
sweeping
we want
wetlands.
she. Me a
We're going to continue the party later. We got a program to do to discuss what transpired last evening. Folks, let me tell you all, let me take edge before Ronald comes on. And that is Ronald Austin Jr., the historian, the philanthropist, entrepreneur, influencer, the everything. The international affairs guru, Ronald Austin Jr. He was wrong. Just let me take edge there and say he was wrong. And we have joining us also the Right Honorable Amanzo Walton Desir, the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs in the National Assembly of Guyana. We have an international podcast. I can't assume everybody knows Foreign Affairs Minister for where. So let me locate her in international affairs in the National Assembly of the Cooperative Oil Producing Republic of Guyana. Folks, I'm privileged to have them with me. We're going to have them on very, very shortly, guys. But we always got to attend to our housekeeping matters as soon as we come on. Good to see so many of you joining the podcast this morning. Who vex? It's Mia. So many of you guys, and we're gonna have a fulsome, wholesome discussion. Share the podcast as you come on. Share the live stream. So good to see you, June Chase and Ravi Diorup, Sabina Jacobs and Sheena Hazel and all you other fantastic folks. Let us know how you're receiving the audio this afternoon. We hope that it's coming through very clear. We want you to hear our guests very, very clear. I don't care if y'all ain't hear me properly. It's my guests I'm worried about. So ensure that you're hearing us very, very clear and give us an indication if you have anything otherwise. Good to have each and every one of you on the live broadcast. Today, we're joining you from the rainy national capital city of Georgetown, where we produce our international podcast. Below the Belt, I'm your host, Sherry Duncan, and we're discussing today it's safer with Mia. That's what she told Barbarians. It's safer with Mia. And the Barbadians seem to have agreed with her in yesterday's general election, and her being Mia Motley, the Prime Minister, should we say, Prime Minister elect of Barbados, folks. And quite a discussion ahead of us. Rowena Williams, we see you there. Myrtle Hines and Sheena Hazel, Andira Paradise, we see you as well. GT, Rude Girl, I ain't seen a little while. GT, Rude Girl, welcome back. Whatever money you owe me, I'll forgive you. Come round more often. Whatever money you owe. We forgive you. We forgive you. Deborah Sharona Lynch, good to see you as well. Good to see all you beautiful, fantastic, hardworking, industrious people. Good to see you all out there, wherever you all are joining us from. Great to see each and every one of you. What a fantastic day for the Caribbean. What an election last evening. Oh my, oh my, oh my. What do we say to these things, guys? What do we say to these things? Tremendous win for Mia Motley and her party last evening. But first, guys, where we are in the national capital city of Georgetown, we know it's cold some places. Folks, we see those photographs you sent us out of Canada, out of some parts of the USA. It is freezing cold. My God. It's 27 degrees outside where we are. Weather.com tells us it feels like 31 degrees, and there's a 65% chance it's going to rain this afternoon, according to weather.com. Folks, we told you all yesterday what weather.com said, and they were spot on. They were spot on. Unlike Ronald Austin with these Barbadian election. 65%. We told you all, walk with your umbrella yesterday. They're telling us again, 65% chance it's going to rain this afternoon. Folks, pick up your umbrella. Pick up your umbrella, your hat, your coat, whatever it is, to stay dry. Folks who are joining us from those cold climates, guys, stay warm. Stay warm wherever you are. Stay warm, folks. Stay warm. Some of the news we're following, oh my, COVID, COVID, COVID. Running away from me, like them boys give up. COVID, Dora, 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 Dora. COVID. My God. We hope something happens. Something's got to give, it's either we or COVID. Something has got to give. So we're watching that. We are watching what is happening on the COVID front. We're watching that. We're watching what's happening on the COVID front, folks. Not a nice picture at all. Not a nice picture at all. We're seeing in some regional news that uh, Irfan Ali is supposed to sign an energy corridor memorandum of understanding with Brazil and Suriname. Oh my, oh my! I gotta pique Ronald's and Mans's interest on this. Jair Bonacero is supposed to be visiting us on Friday with his delegation, and Chandrika Prasad Santoki is supposed to be meeting with Irfan Ali in Suriname, I think today. And so, we're gonna watch to see what's happening on this front. We're gonna watch to see that. But folks, as I said, we have joining us this morning, two distinguished Guyanese, two role models, two great, fantastic role models. We couldn't ask for two better young people than this to be leading the charge on these fronts. We have with us the Honorable Amanda Walton Desir, Member of Parliament, and she is the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs in the Cooperative Oil Producing Republic of Guyana. Ronald Austin is a columnist, he's a writer, he's a thinker, an influencer, historian by training, by profession. The man knows what he's talking about, loves international affairs. Both himself and Manza are very, very avid readers. One of the things that has really endeared me to them. Really and truly, folks, without any further ado, let's welcome our guest today. We need some applause now. Guys, welcome.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Good
Thank
afternoon
you.
to your listeners.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Sherry. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to the most honorable Amanda Walton this year. I'm pleased to be here.
Folks, I'm getting a little
Good
feedback at my
afternoon,
end, but not
Ronald.
feedback, a buzzing. So forgive me if you're hearing that as well. We're trying as much as possible to get that little bug out. But let's take it from the top. The news at the hour. Ronald was wrong. Let me start there. When Ronald was on with us the last time, I think Ronald said he was predicting 25 seats for Mayor Motley and 5 to the opposition. I think that was his conservative conservative view. So I'm happy to say Ronald was wrong. Mia Motley walked to a sweeping victory, identical to her victory in 2018, 30-0. Am I right to say 30 love? I'm not too familiar with all the acronyms or all the slangs of dominoes and so on. But is it 30 love? Ronald Amanza.
It is. It is. It
Yeah,
was
it is.
apparently a clean sweep.
Well, clean sweep it is. Clean sweep it is. I mean, the night started out one way, and Ronald, I heard one commentator as I was engaging what was happening there in Barbados say that 2018 was an aberration, quote unquote. 2018 was an aberration, and that to get a fair sense of what was going to play out last night, as the night was young, um, and as is it the Fitzgerald author of that seminal novel, Tender is the Night, as the night was tender, said that to get a good sense of what was going to happen, you had to look back to 2013. But Mia got some people wrong, she that boy. She gambled on this, and it paid off. Ronald, start us off.
Yeah, right. Sherrod, once again, good afternoon to your viewers. I just want to, first of all, address the issue on whether or not Ronald was wrong or right. If if you to conclude that based on the projection of seats, to conclude that Ronald is wrong based on the projection of seats, that smacks of political forecasting naivety. You have to look at there's a general thesis or general conclusions, which I argued in my column. And the general thesis which I posited was that Mia Motley was not in trouble. I was right on that. My general conclusion was that she's going to retain her majority. Now, if anyone understands political forecasting, nobody gets the number of seats correct. I mean, Wickham, for example, the renowned political scientist within the Caribbean, he projected 3 seats to the opposition. We had Professor Ben from UWI, he predicted 4 seats. The 5 seats that I had in play, those seats seem to be swing seats. You had, for example, with St. Lucie, that was running at 8% possibility of swing. You had some other seats which accomplished commentators would have said, these seats may go to the opposition. So let me just address that issue. When you decide if political forecasting is wrong or right, you have to look at the general thesis, the general conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can say, for example, if you have a cricket match or if you have a football match, you can say, okay, the team is going to win. There's no way you can predict the exact score. You're not going to predict the exact balls that are going to be no balls. You can't do that.
Unless it's a set piece.
Right. The only way you can do that is unless you're clairvoyant or you're some kind of soothsayer. So let me just address that. In terms of political forecasting, you can't get the exact numbers, but your general thesis. If I had theorized that Motley was going to lose, then I would have deserved any amount of reviews to suggest that I'm wrong. But in terms of the general thesis, I mean, Wickham was at 3. Professor Ben UWI, he was at 4. So that said, Sherrod, I think the morning after is normally, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of normal things, the morning after is normally a bit too early to really do some kind of forensic introspection. But for all intents and purposes of this discussion, we can have that kind of conversation. And I mean, who did not see this coming? Anybody who observed Caribbean politics, anybody who has a basic understanding of politics and campaigning, I mean, could have foreseen this coming. I mean, the DLP, the Democratic Labour Party, made 2 fundamental mistakes, which were being pointed out by all and sundry.
Tell us.
They made it about leadership. And they made it about the prime minister, the prime minister position. They did not make it local. In Barbados politics, it's really the constituency-based system where you go for a specific candidate who comes in the area, and he or she would do lots of work.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Democratic Labour Party did, they said, "Do not vote for Mia because she's despotic," and they immediately place Verla, the Pfizer, against Mia Motley. I mean, the greatest of respect. So the lady and her accomplishments, that being Mr. Pizer, the greatest respect to what she has achieved in life. She cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, match the kind of gravitas that Mia Motley has. The Democratic Labour Party plays Verla in a position to get a shellacking.
Which she did.
You can, Sherrod, you can go through the list of leadership qualities that are required for political success. And then every time you check every single box, Verla would be lacking. Let's say communication, for example. You watch the rallies. Verla was underwhelming. Verla did not excite passions. She did not have the kind of clarity or grasp of issues like Motley. And in all fairness, you are putting Verla up against somebody who has been in the trenches for years. She's the youngest. I think she became the Crown General or something at 23. She held several portfolios, opposition leader twice. She is seasoned. And whenever Motley articulates on the campaign trail, the clarity of thought and of vision and her grasp of all things bureaucratic and governmental across the Barbados governmental administrating continuum is absolutely phenomenal. Whenever reporters ask her about any cabinet portfolio, she articulates policies and programs, whether it's housing, whether it's transportation, whether it's education, almost as if she can become the only person in the Barbados cabinet. And I'm not exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
That is what Motley has emerged as. Motley currently has three portfolios. And when you hear Motley articulate the vision of the government, you ask yourself what those other cabinet members are essentially doing. It seems as if she's the one who sits. She envisions everything. She plans. I mean, to the greatest of respect to those who are within her cabinet. So, Sherrod, number one, the DLP made a fundamental flaw. Also, it said to the Bajans, do not vote for her because she's despotic. The average voter, Sherrod, you're not going to get persons to vote based on fear. They're going to ask themselves, we are smack down in the middle of a pandemic. You're saying to us that this woman is despotic. She's authoritarian. She's a dictator. They actually use the pronouncements of Owen Arthur, who was once Mia's comrade, who said she was dictatorial. They use a kind of mantra. Now, Bajans were asking themselves, how could you tell me this woman is dictatorial and she's despotic when she has reduced the powers of the prime minister? Nobody who's a despot or nobody who has dictatorial inclinations calls it snap elections, regardless of the strategic purpose. This woman is embracing democracy. She's coming to the electorate. So how is she despotic? So the whole, I'm so shocked at Lucille Moore, who was once part of Motley's cabinet, who now joined the DLP. She is a key strategist. I'm so shocked. Don't vote for her because she's despotic. Then persons are asking themselves, okay, we're not going to vote for her. Then what do you have for us? Because this despotic woman that you're talking about has promised housing development within the 10 years. She has raised the minimum wage from $5 to $8. She has clear programs of policy. She's engaging in training. She is engaging in education. And you're saying to us, do not vote for her because she's despotic. And she has manifested Madisonian type democratic behavior. She's not despotic. And she also comes along with programs and policies that can directly impact our lives from a bread and butter level. So I couldn't understand for the life of me, how could the Democratic Labour Party, after receiving a shellacking in 2018, come back again? It's almost, Sherrod, as if it's a psychopathology. I mean, I'm happy that I would have read the book by Barbara Tuchman called The March of Folly, in which she described leaders who embark on certain actions that are inexplicable. How could you, after a shellacking, come back with this kind of strategy? The thing is, and also to mention, Sharon, what is Fredel Jerome Stewart, with all respect to the elder statesman, what is he doing on a platform? He was part and parcel of the shellacking of 2018. You should hide him. He was on the platform saying, I have no shame.
Ronald, my only disagreement with you there, I don't think shellacking really tells us what transpired in 2018 much more yesterday. I don't think shellacking is the right word. I would say it's a beat down.
I know, right? I know normally. This is Barack Obama's phrase, which he employed when he got his licks. Right. So just to make a point, because just to make a quick last point before we proceed, I couldn't understand for the life of me what is Stewart doing on a platform talking about he has no shame. I cannot understand this psychopathology. It's almost a disease of the mind. You have a man who was part and parcel of, for the want of a better phrase, the licks. Let's say licks. Unprecedented licks, if you will. He's on a platform still talking. You need to hide this man. Tell him stay home. And if we win, we're going to make you a cabinet member. But do not come out and speak. I couldn't understand. You're watching this thing, you can't explain it.
Well, they got some time now to consider the error of their ways. A lot of time. A lot of time, Ronald. Mansa, Mansa, Mansa. What are your thoughts after last night?
Well, Sharon, I listened with much interest as well to what Ronald said. I wanted to first off say that the people of Barbados would have spoken. The results have been declared, and so congratulations are in order for Prime Minister Motley. I surmise it very simply that, as you said, she took a calculated gamble and won. She prior to the election, she would have been enjoying a serious uh, wave of acclaim internationally, having put up quite a showing at the last Earth Summit that we had in Copenhagen, the COP26, and her remarkable addresses there. She really established herself, arguably, as the foremost champion for the environment in this era, really.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think riding on that wave of popularity, as well as having that momentous occasion of Barbados becoming a republic, a very, very shrewd politician she is. She took a calculated gamble, and and it paid off. And so I am happy for the democratic process in Barbados. That level of of being able to conduct a poll, not so controversial, results quickly available, is something that we should all really aspire to. I noted though that the report was showing that the the voter turnout was not what would have been expected. It was somewhere between 40 to 50%, and so I wanted to hear Ronald's thoughts on the impact of that turnout, and I wanted as well to get his thoughts on the point that he made earlier. He noted that the Prime Minister of Barbados seems to have, as well as she should, a very good grasp of direction. The trouble with power and knowledge and all of that being consolidated into one person is that unless you build your institutions, you generally tend to end up in uncertain situations. So what I would want to see is a focus on them building their national institutions or continuing to build their national institutions. I believe over the course of the campaign, her messaging was quite clear,
Mm-hmm.
to the point,
Mm-hmm.
and spoke to the people of Barbados. This is what we have done. This is what we intend to do. Stay the course with us.
Yep. Yep.
And the people responded.
Yep. It's safe
And the
with me.
people responded. And so, congratulations to Barbados. And I look forward to her continued championship of environmental matters. Um, we in this part of the world, and particularly the small island developing states of the Caribbean, are key stakeholders in ensuring that, you know, the climate change back fought and won. And she proven to be a key player in that arena. And so I wish her nothing but the best.
Fantastic. Just as an aside, one of our listeners, Adam Passad, says, Miss Desir, like she boiling planting some plantains in the background. That's the you know,
Actually, no, I'm not sure where the feedback is coming from, but actually in a very quiet office, so I'm not sure where the feedback is coming from.
You
Right.
know, quite an evening. I want to pick up on
And
what you said, Amanda.
tell him, no, I can't afford to do that very often with the price of plantains. No.
Certainly not.
Mr. Prasad, I hope you're hearing. I hope you're hearing, Mr. Prasad. Let's pick up on Amanda's point of Mayor on the world stage, and really and truly has been able to set herself apart from other Caribbean leaders who are vying for airtime too on that international stage. Whether you have your speech prepared for you, you have to be able to deliver that speech. But apart from that, Mir seems always in control of the facts and know what is happening in every crack and crevice of Barbados. They say that success is preparation meets opportunity. And clearly, she has been preparing. She's been in politics for a long time and preparing. Brother and Amanza, this is now 3030 2018 2022. 30 Love, 30 Love, 2018 2022. Locate for us Mayor Motley, not only in Caribbean history, but in international and world affairs.
If I may, Sharon,
Go ahead, brother.
I think what Amanza raised two very important points. If I can just quickly address
Go
those,
right ahead.
I think the question of the low voter turnout is something that cannot escape the attention of any dispassionate observer. If the reports I'm getting suggest that we're looking at possible 45% turnout. Normally, Barbados elections are 67% average turnout. I think 2018 you were about 65, 67%. Whenever you have low voter turnout of that nature, then you open yourself up to the question of your legitimacy. And I think it's fair game for anybody to ask the question, can you boast of the same kind of legitimacy that you had in 2018?
Can you boast of a
You had an
mandate?
election. Can you boast not just of a mandate, boast of the legitimacy that comes along with that mandate? Because you're talking about COVID-19. Remember, you had about 5,000 persons who could not vote because they were COVID-19 positive, which became the subject of a court action, which the High Court essentially rejected. So, indeed, I would agree. I would like to mention what Amans alluded to is something that has to be part of the discussion, the question of the legitimacy. The second point is, which Amanda requested for us to talk about, is the whole question on. I can't remember the point. I can't recall the point. Anyway, where would we put Mia Motley in the context of Caribbean leadership? I mean, whether it's Granty Adams in her home country, Tom Adams, Grantley Adams, those big giants, Forbes Burnham, Chetty Jagan, Michael Manley, Dr. Anthony, Ralph Gonzalez in his own right. I know your listeners might have the knives out for me, but I analyze
Knives and cutlass.
So I got it right. Yeah, the cutlass might be out for me. But where do we analyze her in that grand context? I mean, I should make this point. Mia Amor Motley comes from a clan, the Motleys, both in Trinidad and Barbados. And anybody who researched her would know her father was extremely bright. She comes from that kind of middle class context. She's been involved in government in practically her entire life, youngest in certain positions. Now, where can we factor her in? The way she bestrides the world stage, the way she challenges BBC reporters respectfully and intellectually, where she sits so comfortably among world leaders without an absolute any absolute manifestation of any fear. She goes to the UN and she admonishes developed nations, a kind of chutzpah that is unprecedented. I mean, those world leaders would have been sitting there. I think Biden was in the audience, all of them. And she admonished them for their failure of leadership on climate change matters, from a small island state, Barbados, that you can get around in one day if you do some good driving, to this, she goes to the United Nations and she admonishes them. She employs foreign policy, which essentially says friends of all, satellite of none. She works with the Chinese, she works with the Americans. Trump comes in, Pompeo invites countries to go to have lunch with him, with Trump in Miami. She refuses, and yet says she's able to straddle all of those different allegiances and satellites. In my assessment of her and what she represents, that kind of iconic status, do I think she deserves to be in the pantheon of great Caribbean leaders? Would I put her up? Let's say we had a Mount Rushmore. You know Mount Rushmore in America with all the past American presidents. If we had a Caribbean Mount Rushmore, would Motley be on that? Would be on that Mount Rushmore? Yes, she would. So I'm saying that I would put Motley, based on what she has accomplished electorally, based on what she has done on the world stage, and based on the issues that she is carrying, and the kind of gravitas that she brings to the office of Prime Minister of Barbados. It is unprecedented what she has achieved. And make no mistake, we can debate passionately all we want. There are those who cannot stand her because they are Guyanese who say, I'll never forgive her for involvement in our elections. Doesn't matter what she does. I cannot forgive her. But the fact remains she was chairman of CARICOM at that time. So we're not going to get into that. But the fact remains that Mia Motley is a larger-than-life Caribbean figure. And I suspect when she leaves office, the world, global institutions and multilateral organizations will snatch her up. They're probably waiting patiently for her to say she's no longer interested in being Prime Minister of Barbados. I am predicting now, Sherrod, again, you know what I mean, my prediction. Mia Motley will end up as some Secretary General of some one of those organizations. Some Deputy Secretary General, something. She's going to be large. So how, in my estimation, how do I feature her in the grand scheme of great political leaders? I think obviously she has not. I mean, it would be unfair to compare with the likes of Forrest Burnham and Jagan, who passed through independence and all of these grand struggles. She hasn't had that. I mean, you could argue there were hurricanes and there were these big cataclysmic events. And yes, we're in the smackdown in the middle of a pandemic, which the world has never seen. People may ask, how would those leaders have featured during a pandemic? But she has had her own crises in a different form. And the way she has responded to those, I would put her in the category, probably not number in the top 5, but she's there. She's there in the top 10, certainly.
Very well, very well. Amanza, your thoughts?
Sherrod, generally, what determines I've always maintained that whoever emerges leader in any given context is always the answer to the question of the time. Ronald alluded to Forbes Burnham, Chedi Jagan, and the fight for and struggle for independence. The challenge for, like I said before, these small island developing states, and to a large extent Guyana as a coastal state, is the threat of climate change and the adverse effects of climate change. And I think that is the defining challenge of this time for this part of the world. And what she was demonstrating is that she has been able to take up the mantle of leadership. And I'm getting a feedback. I don't know if somebody needs to mute their mic. I'm not sure what's happening,
Let me see if I can
but
help
I'm
from
getting
this.
a feedback. Right. And so she has been able to take up that mantle of leadership for that issue in this time. And so she has emerged as the voice and as the champion of this part of the hemisphere for that issue. I really do believe that she will be placed in the league of some of the greatest leaders to have emerged from the Caribbean. Certainly, she has established herself as a voice of reason and of wisdom um, in the context of climate change. And that will only grow, that will only continue to be amplified as other nations begin to grapple with this phenomena.
Yep. Thanks very much for that,
And,
Amanza. Thank you very much for that
and
intervention.
Sherrod,
Ronald Kurt
Sherrod,
Heidecken, one of our listeners, disagrees with you on the Mount Rushmore allusion there. He disagrees with you vehemently. Ronald.
I accept the fact that he disagrees. So that's why we have these kinds of conversations. You don't expect everybody to agree with you. If everybody agrees with you, that is indoctrination. That is not education. I just recall what Amanza alluded to. The Honorable Amanza alluded to earlier. She wanted us to talk about this whole thing where power seems to be concentrated in Motley's hand. And I think what happens to most visionaries, and we saw it with Franz Burnham, we saw it with in other cases, most visionaries who are extremely bright, invariably, they tend to dominate to such an extent that they tend to do everything. What Motley has to be careful about is her health. I recall during the campaign, she became extremely hoarse. She was not at her sonorous best throughout the thing. But when you find somebody like that, when you become the ticket, the power and governance, then you tend to find everything is concentrated within your hands. You run the risk of not preparing a backup. I don't know if anybody can recall when in St. Lucia, when they needed a leader. I can't recall the party. They needed somebody. They didn't have anybody with that kind of stature. They went and they got Dr. Anthony out of they got plucked Dr. Anthony out of CARICOM, brought him, and the rest is history. So she has to be careful with that, because it seems to me throughout the campaign, even though Barbados is a constituency-based kind of system, every local constituency, you had the local person's photographs there, and you had Motley right beside. Essentially, she dominates. And there are some risks with that. Indeed, Amanza alluded to the fact that you need to build institutions, you need to train people, and you need to have some kind of continuity plan. I don't see anybody. Maybe I'm far away. Based on my vantage point, I don't see anybody matching that kind of stature. When she decides that, I can't do it anymore because I'm not feeling well or something happens, and God forbid, I hope she has the best of health. But let's say, because of the pressures of the job, she decides she needs to take it easy. She needs to have persons who can follow up, because it seems as if Bajans are going to the polls to vote for this larger than life character, and they're not necessarily looking at the local leaders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want us to expand on that, Ronald and Amanza. This is Mia Motley just after she would have been declared as the candidate for her constituency. This is St. Michael East last evening. I think some of her comments here tells us who she is at center and what is responsible for much of her success. But it also tells us too that politics is local, and I want us to, as I said, expound and expand on that, perhaps even in our own context here. Let's take a listen.
I first want to give thanks to God um, for life and for the grace allowing me to continue during the course of these challenging times. I want to thank in particular, largely because in this campaign, I did not get any opportunity to engage with them. And one of the burdens of leadership is, of course, parliamentary democracy, that you have to spend time with your team. And more often than not, that is meant, therefore, that I had to rely on an excellent team. I'm particularly pleased that my campaign manager this time is a young, my constituency, who started with me as a teenager. Yeah, probably. In 1999 or 2003? 2003, yeah. In 2003. And she has risen to be able to manage this. She did not see me. She did not hear me more often than not. And with the new election agent too, my campaign manager was Keisha Worrell. And of course, Rick Anderson was the election agent. Marcus Stevens continues to be my right hand when it comes to canvassing, and a number of other people who literally came together to be able to allow me the opportunity to go from St. Lucie to St. Philip, from St. John to St. James, and at the same time to repose their confidence in me to continue to be their parliamentary representative. This is my eighth election, and I do not take it for granted. And I really, really, really want to say to the people who have raised me, I came out here, as I keep saying, a young girl, literally, at the age of. Uh, at the age of 23, when I was first elected, my brother, who is here, and who was my counting agent, was at that time about 10 or 11 years old. And on that first occasion when I lost, I didn't me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Say, lose, you lose, you lose. So as I walked into me, he said, you win, you win, you win. So I think that may well be the fitting circle being closed. I want to say thank you to my parents who are not here, without whom I really, really would not be who I am. And I say thank you. Um, my mother is normally here at every political event. But once again, the first day that I was nominated, she was having a medical procedure the next day. And on this occasion, she's having a medical procedure in a few days' time. So that has been well. But I want to say to both of them, thank you, and I love them very much. And to my sister and brother who are here, my other company agents, Kenny and Sue and Debbie, who were also
Yep.
here,
So that's just a
and who have
bit of
been,
that.
with the exception of Kenny, my
After
company agents every election.
the Prime
As
Minister
it
elect Mia Motley was elected by her constituency last evening, she was talking to reporters there in St. Michael East. Ronald Anamanza.
I'll let Amanda go ahead because I had the mic before.
Oh no, I was listening to the extract. You get a sense of someone that is really grounded and supported by family. And my information is that there is a lot of grooming of young people to to one day take up the mantle. I think it is important that we study and analyze these issues, such as the Barbados elections, because they hold lessons for us. And so, if we are going to be effective, we have to be able to look, to analyze, and to learn and to take away lessons from that. Um, I think what is important for us in Guyana to bear in mind is particularly the issues of the readiness of our electoral system, because Barbados would have called a snap election, but that is
3 weeks.
because they could have done it because their system, their electoral system, was in a state of readiness.
We're waiting for
You
LG.
juxtapose that against Guyana. We have a severely bloated voters list. The entire electoral system is in quite a mess. And so you have two clear examples of why it is important to have a properly functioning GCOM in our case, so that elections could be run smoothly, could be run seamlessly, and results could be had in the shortest possible time. So you always have to be careful, because I know that some people can get very impatient with us talking about Barbados, but it is important that we study these events, that we study the surrounding circumstances,
Yep.
because they will
Yep.
hold lessons
Yep.
for your own nation.
Yep.
And so we have to continue to understand as well that we cannot be insular in our assessment. Guyana operates within an international context. We operate with international partners, and there are things that would have happened in Barbados that may have implications for Guyana, and those things have to be factored in. And so I wanted to make the point that this is why it is important that we delve into these types of assessments, because we only come out the better for it. We come out understanding what is happening on the global stage, because Guyana is now, as an oil producing nation, emerging as um, an important player on the international scene. And so I thought it was very important for me to make that
Yep.
intervention, that it is important that we pay attention to these international events, because we no longer operate in isolation.
Yep.
Everything is connected, whether we see it or understand it to be so. It is connected, it is related, and it affects you. It affects us here in Guyana. So
All are
um,
involved and all are consumed. All are
all
involved.
are involved, and
All are
all
consumed.
are consumed. And
Be-
so, like I said, the nation of Barbados, they have had their elections. They have demonstrated very clearly that their electoral system is in a state of readiness, and therefore. The lesson for us in Guyana here is that we now have to insist that our electoral system be in a state of readiness. And the first such call has to be for a clean new voters list,
yep.
because the mathematical impossibility that is our list cannot and should not be used to have any other election. It is an injustice to the people of Guyana.
Ronald, before you come in, I want to play Mia taking a victory lap later on in the evening last night. And perhaps you can come and you can tie both pieces together for us and for our listeners. This, as I said, is Mia later on in the evening when the electoral map was certain that she was going to have a second term with a very, very sweeping majority in the Barbadian parliament. Let's take a listen.
When we need to go back to the people, and when we need to be able to allow the people in whom power resides to make decisions about its future. It became clear to us that the ability to prepare this nation for the serious challenges that we will face in the next 10 to 15 years required that we give the people of this nation the option of choosing who it wanted to lead it into that process. We stand today on the morning of the 20th of January, confident that the people of this nation have spoken with one voice, decisively, unanimously, and clearly. We want each and every one of us to thank the people of Barbados for the confidence that they continue to repose in us to be able to lead this country first to safety and then to prosperity. The last 2 years have not been easy. And it has been a fact of record that we have spent more time in our previous term under the threat of the COVID pandemic, 24 months, as opposed to the 19 months that we initially had. We are conscious as a political institution that there is still much to be done and that there is a road still to be traveled and that there are things that you as Barbadians are legitimately expecting of us. But we are equally conscious that it comes very rarely to a generation to change the pattern of history and to transform a nation. In a very real sense, we felt, as we told you in 2018, that we had been existing on the fumes of the independence generation rather than seeking to carry this nation forward and to release the opportunities that are so obviously available, particularly to Barbadians and young Barbadians. We showed you that we have confidence in our future by finding the money in the middle of an IMF program to invest in our young people through the revision of the policies that would allow us once again to offer free education from
taking a victory
pre-primary to
last
tertiary
evening
levels.
into this morning. Ronald, Amanda.
Right. Sharon, what you just, I'm happy that the point has been made that we ought to take note of what is happening. And Amanda did allude to some very critical things which we ought to consider. But I want to say that opposition parties in the Caribbean should have their notebooks out by now. They should be documented several important things. What I discerned
Talk to us, Ronald.
is that the Democratic Labour Party, after they got that shellacking or that the kind of licks they got in 2018, there is no conspicuous evidence to suggest that they conducted a systematic review. There is no evidence that they actually conducted an internal review and admitted a few things to themselves and then by extension to the people. There's no evidence that they decided to come out and say, okay, we got this wrong, we got that wrong. Second lesson that opposition parties in the Caribbean should pay attention to is the fact that the DLP was an absolute crisis in terms of leadership. There was no clear indication as to who was going to be their prime minister. Every time the question was asked, it was never answered. Mm-hmm. Yes, you had Verla there, but they referred to her as president of the Democratic Labour Party. There was nothing definitive saying that if we win, soon as we get into office, this is our team, these are our leaders. Now, you cannot present that kind of uncertainty in a time of a pandemic. I rather suspect, Sharon, that the decision made by the Bayesians had to do much with this COVID-19 pandemic. I rather suspect that the people were thinking, we cannot have a Democratic Labour Party that comes to power, uncertain of who's leading them, uncertain of exactly what kind of programs and policies they have in the middle of a pandemic. And I think that's a lesson opposition parties need to document. The third thing is, we are seeing a constant trend emerging. We saw it with the Jamaican elections. We're seeing it in Latin America. People are fed up with the abuse and cost politics. They want to hear what policies and programs. I mean, fine. In the art of Caribbean politicking, you have to have your name calling, and Motley did it. You know, you make fun of your candidates and so on.
Just don't call them jagabats and trench crappers.
Well, that's a whole nother story by itself. But in the same breath of you engaging in Caribbean stylistic politics where you put some blows on your opponent, you refer to something personal but without crossing any red lines about them, in the same breath, you've got to say, look, Tom Jones is lampy pampy, or Tom Jones can't walk properly. But I will make sure when I get into office, this is what I'm going to do for you. And you saw Motley in the campaign trail.
Pivot.
As much as she engaged in the mundane aspects of politicking in Barbados, every single appearance she mentioned education, she mentioned training. And I know persons who support the DLP may want to say, "Oh, Mr. Austin, we had a manifesto filled with programs and policies." The people do not read your manifesto; they listen to the sound bites. Listen to what you say, and you have to make sure you bring out some messaging from your manifesto. And as much as you do a little abusing, you've got to say to people, how are your policies going to impact my life? And that is a lesson for opposition parties. You have to present yourself as an alternative government always. Yes, abuse them. Yes, I'm saying they're wrong about this. But this is what we plan to do when we get in the chair. And programs and policies. And you have to debunk. For example, Mia has her housing drive. She has her education program. You did not see anybody from the DLP saying that, look, this is the wrong approach. We intend to take this approach. You did not, I mean, in all fairness, I'm not in Barbados, so I'm speaking, I accept, I'm from a position of observing far away. So I take whatever criticisms come along with that. But it doesn't prevent us from, through technology, analyzing these things.
Correct.
Albeit with whatever shortcomings. Because as Amanda mentioned, we live in an integrated world today, and what happens in the Caribbean is our business, is all our business. So I'm saying, Shara, that opposition parties ought to be taking note. Those who want to squabble and fight and decide I must be king or there shall be no party, then come to the electorate, say vote for us. The electorate will say to you, what are we voting for? Are we voting for confusion? That's all we're seeing. We're seeing bickering and we're seeing fighting, we're seeing confusion. We're seeing every man and woman for themselves. And I think that's a strong message coming out of Barbados. The DLP was in a disarray. Every man and woman, every man wants to be king, every woman wants to be queen. Lashley, who was a candidate for DLP, was on the campaign trail bashing Vorla. It was a fight within them. And I think what Bayesian saw are people who are fighting, they're confused, they're not sure what they're about, and they decided you're not going to lead us during a time of a pandemic with that kind of squabbling. So I think opposition parties in the Caribbean should observe that you can fight in your party and break the china and say, I must be the person in charge, I must walk the red carpet, I must have the bodyguards around me, or there'll be no party. But when you come to the electorate, they will remember all you are engaging in is absolute confusion and chaos. And it will influence their behavior. I just want to make one last point, Sharon.
Go right ahead, Ronald.
There's a fundamental flaw whenever we analyze politics in what you call homogenous society. And Barbados is by large a homogenous society where you have essentially one ethnic group. You don't have the ethnic questions there. In Guyana here, we have what you call a heterogeneous society. You have the ethnic question here. And when politics in a multi-ethnic and pro-society is quite different from a Barbados. Because here in Guyana, you can articulate how many policies you want. People tend to vote based on religious, familial, and ethnic obligations. So you could cry to the desert. You could go build a big fancy road somewhere. You can probably give a community water for the first time. But they vote based on tradition. Of course, that is changing. I'm happy it's changing. We have about maybe I roughly 5 to 6% or 10% thereabout who tend to vote on policies. But I just want to mention that we must be careful when we analyze, observe what's happening in Barbados, but we must acknowledge that it does not have this whole ethnic question with our politics. So some lessons can be imported and some might not be applicable because it's a different kind of political setup and political context.
Mm-hmm. Very well, very well. Amanda, in our closing minutes.
I just really wanted to echo the sentiments that that Ronald just made, uh, particularly in terms of the lessons that we can draw. There is no doubt that Prime Minister Motley has emerged as a giant on the international stage. That uh, campaign slogan, safer. It's safer with Mia. I think it was a double, a double entendre, um, both in the context of their handling of the pandemic as well as this issue of climate change. And so the people of Barbados obviously saw that it was better to stay this course. The point that Ronald makes about the homogeneous versus the heterogeneous society is key, is absolutely key, as well as the level of awareness of the electorate. I keep making the point that as a people in Guyana, we have to determine that we are deserving of more. We have to begin to educate, to um, speak to our people continuously, indicating to them that they are deserving of more, because the issue that Ronald raised is a vexed issue. You could have the most salient of policies. Because of the issue of race in Guyana, it continues to polarize the society. And so the immediate challenge for us is, how do we get our electorate up to the level where, by and large, we can be beyond that ethnic question, and Guyanese begin to vote on issues of policy, on issues of who has the best plan. And I believe that it will be up to the younger generation of leaders like yourself, Sharon, Ronald, myself, to begin to engage our people with the message that you deserve more. More is possible. Let us come up higher. Let us come up higher so that Guyana can truly, really take her place as a leader in this part of the hemisphere.
Fantastic. I love that. We deserve more. Closing thoughts, Ronald.
Right. It's absolutely important that I'll say this. I will make this admission. I'm consider myself part of what you call the moderates. I mean, we just want to see the country do well, and that is why we find ourselves enamored by the likes of Amanda Walton Desir. God protect her soul, because we know that she is of a different mindset. We don't consider her to be that tribal. I know she's willing to go into a room and hammer out a deal in the interest of country. That's a confidence you want. I'm happy that likes of Sherrod Duncan, for example, like yourself, you are educating, you're holding programs, you're allowing for free speech and democracy, and we expect that we would have a different cadre. I mean, of leaders emerging. I mean, I can say to you that I'm confident that I'm part of that 10%, and I talk to persons like that every day from all ethnic backgrounds. They are fed up with the tribal politics on both sides. They're extremely fed up. They want to see programs and policies, and they're conscious that they're conscious about what Aman's alluded to, that we cannot continue to proceed on this basis that regardless of what leaders do, I must support them because they're kith and kin. And this kind of concern is not restricted to one side of the political divide, to all groups. If your leaders are not delivering, you have to hold them accountable by giving them a kick at the ballot box. That, regardless of which political party they're from, if they are doing nonsense, then you have to send a message to them that you're doing nonsense and you want better for the interests of the country. So my closing thoughts in the entire thing is that Mia Motley, I suspect, like Amanza mentioned, this whole issue of climate change, which Barbadians are very concerned about, because let's we forget Barbados is one of those small island states that is directly in the path of all of the fallouts of climate change. It's projected that small islands like Barbados could disappear within 50 years. So I think that kind of anxiety, the leadership Motti provided on it, I think is part of the key for her victory and among the other things you would have mentioned. And I hope that we are paying attention to those lessons that we can use. And I hope that our leaders are paying attention to these affairs and making notes. And I hope the main message from the Barbados elections, you heard Motti there speaking at 3 in the morning, I think it was, 3 hours in the morning, almost hoarse. You have to work hard. Nobody is going to give you political victory. People are not stupid. People know who work hard and they will reward you. You have to work hard. You have to speak to the people. You could have easily said, you know what, I'm tired. I want to have a nap. I'll talk to you people at 10 in the morning. She didn't. She went up on the podium and she spoke with a hoarse voice. People observe those things. The woman is working hard, and
Yep.
political leaders have got to understand you have to do the work. Even you cannot simply shy away. People are not stupid. People know who's not doing the work. We want to hear from you. We voted for you. We're not hearing from you. We're not seeing you. People know who work hard. And I think if there's any major lesson coming out of that I wish we could import here, is that leaders must work hard. And when they work hard, they are rewarded.
Fantastic, fantastic. Amanzo Walton Desir, the Honorable Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, and the one and only Ronald Austin, historian, an influencer, author, columnist. Thank you for being part of the program today. It has been an education for me, and I hope as well for our listeners around the world. Thank you, Amanza. Thank you, Ronald.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us, Sharon. Have a good afternoon.
Folks, that's our time today. That's our program for today. So glad that so many of you could have joined our program. So happy to see hundreds of you tune into our live podcast below the belt. Take the opportunity to share the broadcast. We want to see those emojis as well. Wherever around the world you guys are joining us from, tapping into what's happening there in Barbados. We were inspired here, to go out there and to do the work. Do the work for the people. We got to work for the people. And as Ronald rightfully said, work hard. Work hard. And that we get to that place where people are voting for issues, like Amanda said, voting on policies, voting for the better plan, and not tribal voting and ethnic voting. We got to up the level that we're operating at. And we got to demand more. Again, as Amanda said, whoever you put as your leader, you got to demand more of them. You see nonsense happening, demand more. You see them going wrong the pothole as against fixing the pothole, demand more. You see people dying from snake bite for the want of a simple anti-venom, demand more of them. A man dies somewhere in the interior, they got to fetch him out on a tractor because he ain't got the basic transportation. We got to demand more, better health services, a better economy, a better education system, a better public security system. We got to demand more. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you again, Ronald. And thanks to so many of you who've been here with us. Wendy and Andrew, Drew Sloan, Derek Lovell, Lynette Jacobs, Sharon Castillo Edwards, Diane Graves Andy. Thank you guys for joining the podcast today. Wherever in the world you guys are joining us from, we could not and cannot do these programs without you guys. You guys are the heart and soul of all that we do here, whether it is below the belt or in the ring or on our website, credible sources, guys. Thank you for all of your help. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the love. We continue to encourage you guys to come on board and partner with us, especially this month. Things tight. And we're telling you, we got so many obligations to meet. You understand? And we are good stewards. You know, people provide services for us so that we can do these programs, various kinds of services, and we want to ensure that we meet our responsibility. Nobody can go and say we owe them. We are going to be responsible, folks. In 2022, pace and power. Why don't you come on board and partner with us? Help us to do more of these programs. Help us to meet our responsibility because several platforms available at the Cash App is the $ in the ring 592. At PayPal, we are in the ring 592 at gmail.com. At Zelle, same email address, in the ring 592 at gmail.com. Zelle and PayPal, same email address, in the ring 592 at gmail.com. We are available as well via the MMG system, the local Guyanese Cash App. Our number there is 627 6963. 627 6963. We're available via Western Union, available via MoneyGram as well. You got any concerns? You need any guidance on our platform or platforms? Contact us via our WhatsApp number, which is the same as our MMG number, 627 6963. We're going to try to be as responsive as we can. Thank you very much for joining the live podcast, wherever you joined us from around the world today. Thanks for joining our podcast, Below the Belt. Who Vex Lose? Who Vex Vex? Congratulations to Mia Motley and her team, again, winning decisively the general elections in the island of Barbados. Congratulations to the people of Barbados, and congratulations too. We know we have a sizable diaspora there in Barbados. Congratulations to our Guyanese folks living in Barbados. You guys continue to keep our flag flying high there, folks. Continue to keep our flags flying high. Congratulations once more to Prime Minister Mia Motley. Thanks for joining our broadcast, guys. Stay safe. See you this evening in the ring. Same time, same place. Thanks for joining Below the Belt. Who expects? We gone. Stay safe.